Hi folks, we're Sophie and Philippe, two professional chefs and regenerative farmers, on a mission to empower people to grow, cook and preserve nutrient-dense, regeneratively grown, delicious food. We bring you how-to recipes, stories that bridge the gap between the land and our plates, sprinkled with a pinch of humor and lots of grit. After a wildfire burned down much of our farm, we're working hard to rebuild our lives. Join us for some honest cooking, regenerative living, and fun farm-to-table courses and retreats. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Farming Chefs, or if you're new to this channel, welcome to the Farming Chefs. In today's episode, we're going to discuss everything cabbage, where to store it, how to cook it, what's good about this vegetable, what makes it so healthy, and even more. Let's just dive right in by starting to talk a little bit about the plant itself. So this is a cabbage coming from the Brassica family in Latin, variety capitata, meaning the head variety. And this is also referred to as a white cabbage, a green cabbage, a common cabbage. So there are many ways that people refer to this. But basically what this is the massive flower head of the cabbage plant. And in here, eventually, if you let them go long enough, they actually start to rip open, as you can see here. A massive sprout comes out and it creates this beautiful flower. We mostly store them as sauerkraut. I've got a whole recipe up already on how to make German sauerkraut. Link it right here. You can watch it after this episode. But if we're not fermenting them for storage, what we do is we actually hang them upside down in our cool cell. We pierce this big stem and then we hang them upside down in the dark in a cool environment, so about 10 degrees Celsius. I'll drop the Fahrenheit below, and that way they store for months. So you can enjoy your semi-fresh cabbage, if you will, in cooking, if you keep them in your cellar like that, or if you have a cool cell like we do. So a cabbage is actually 95% water, which gives it its crisp and delicious crunch when you bite into it raw. And of course, there are a lot of complex carbs, making it sweet. And that is also one of the things that why we like to use it in coleslaw and things like that, because it does have a natural sweetness to it, which with the right cooking techniques, you can bring out even more. But in terms of health benefits, there are many more good things about a cabbage, and that is that they are packed with magnesium, selenium, and zinc. And when it comes to vitamins, it's mostly vitamin C and K that this puppy provides. So, many a reason to enjoy yourself a good head of cabbage. Maybe not a whole one all at once. For today's demonstration purposes, what I will do is I'll first clean all of these heads. So these came out of our garden, which means that there's still a little bit of dirt on here, maybe the odd snail even, and a bit of, stains from the outer leaves, which is quite normal. And we've left these on the field just slightly too long, if I'm being honest. So let's remove the outer leaves first. If this wasn't going back to the compost, I'd feel like this is somehow wasteful. But since I know that all of this will end up back on the field, either in the form of piggy poo or really well composted kitchen scraps, I have no qualm with this waste. They're very stiff, the leaves. That's because they're so full of water. Just hear that crunch. Let's do that one more time for the ASMR. How satisfying. Last but not least, you can see that as you peel further away, the whiter the cabbage becomes and also the sweeter it becomes, because the green color actually creates a slight bitterness. And that brings us to our first sort of problematic fact about cabbage, if you will. And that is that it has a lot of compounds that naturally contain sulfur. Now, sulfur is that compound that creates that sort of rotten, eggy smell or overcooked cabbage smell. This is something you want to avoid at all times when you're cooking with cabbage, because that's probably the reason most people don't have wonderful childhood memories when it comes to cabbage. And so the first thing to think about when you're cooking cabbage is never cook it at a very high temperature for a very long time, because that actually breaks down the natural fiber of the cabbage in a way that also releases that sulfur compound. So anything above 100 degrees Celsius, I'll drop the Fahrenheit below again, for longer than 8 minutes or so will actually start creating that smell. So when you're cooking, that is one of the first things to look out for. Let's begin. Peace! So first up, we're going to talk about eating it raw, also known as a coleslaw, right? Because that's the way that we mostly eat this puppy raw. So there are a few things that you need to remember when you want to use a cabbage for raw eating, and that is that you really want to savor the crisp. So what you want to make sure of is that this is a fresh cabbage and it's still very hydrated, meaning it hasn't been sitting on your counter for ages or has already been cut into. The second tip is that you want to draw out the moisture with a little bit of salt by massaging the coleslaw well at the beginning and then letting that sit a little. That means that its own juices are going to release, and that's also beneficial in fermenting. But in coleslaw, that actually can be a really nice added touch because you're getting an extra flavor that is, not just watery, but you're getting the flavor of the cabbage itself. Now, thirdly is the temperature at which you store it, which is actually between 8 to 10 degrees Celsius is the perfect serving temperature for that nice crisp and just a good mouthfeel, and that is about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So for this recipe right now, you're going to need a knife, a cabbage, a cutting board, and your ingredients: some fresh lemon juice, some orange zest and orange juice. Then we're going to be using salt, mayonnaise, some yellow raisins, fermented mustard, cumin, some of our own dried apple bits, and a bit of olive oil. Let's get into it. There we go, look at that. So here you see actually the beginning of this flower head emerging, and this is what's going to pop up and then create a beautiful flower. But we're going to annihilate that today. We're going to cut it out because this is already quite fibrous. So we want to get rid of the heart here. Same over here. All right. Time to zzz. Hallo, little man. Hallo. Hi, poepetje. Lag je lekker te slapen? Hebben ze je wakker gemaakt? Can you give me the sling? I'll put him in the sling. Thanks, baby. Okay, we're back. Voila, that's a nice amount of shredded cabbage over here. Now you're going to use your God-given tools and you're going to do some hardcore massaging of this cabbage. So when we're making sauerkraut, all of this liquid is very much needed. When we're making coleslaw, we're actually extracting some of it because otherwise you get those soggy slaws and that's not very nice. A bit of kneading will speed up the process. Salt will do it on its own if you have time. You can just mix it in and let it sit at the side. Okay. Let's give this a minute or 5. Alright, let's make the dressing. While that is waiting over there, I'm going to combine in this jar all the ingredients needed. So there's still about a tablespoon of mustard in here. Coarse mustard it is. Let's add the rest inside. About 4 big tablespoons of mayonnaise. Tiny bit of salt still here as well. Olive oil. The juice of half a lemon. The raisins. I'm gonna pop all of them in here. 1 teaspoon of cumin. I'm gonna give that a good mix. These are dried apples. It's not the season right now for fresh apples, even though fresh apples would do really well in this recipe. So you could either grate that in or chop that in. But what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to use these dehydrated ones. I'm going to roughly coarsely crunch them up and then throw them in, and they'll rehydrate themselves with the juice of the salad dressing. And so it's going to be a delicious little more chewy bite to it to offset the crisp of the coleslaw. I'm quite happy about this combination. Time to bring back the salad. So I'm just gonna take the excess liquid that is gathered at the bottom now. I'm actually gonna save this for my fermentation later on. I'm gonna sprinkle in these apples. Now we're adding in the zest of 1 orange. Now these oranges are actually very sweet, so I'm gonna use the juice, and if it's sweet enough, I'll leave it. Otherwise I might add a touch of honey. I'm gonna add the sauce. Get every last bit in there. Now a good mix. Once it's well mixed, it now needs to be tasted. I'm actually going to let it sit and then I'm going to taste it again because the apple needs to rehydrate and that's going to release some sweetness. And then all the flavors will combine and then I'm going to add some more seasoning if needed because it's a bit hard to tell at this point. In the fridge. Alright, the time is here. Let's give it a taste. Flavors, join together much better and much more, so it's easier to judge now. It needs a bit of acidity though, it's lacking it. I'm gonna add the juice of 1 small lemon. We're just gonna add a bit of honey for sweetness. Perfect. Let's plate this. Bit of texture, some extra nuts on top. Boom! Let's bring it outside. Hi folks, I wanted to take a quick second to talk to you about our farm-to-table culinary retreats that we'll be hosting this year. We'll be doing multiple of them, they're going to be super fun, and if you're into cooking and you want to learn about regenerative growing and nutrient-dense food from scratch cooking and all that good stuff, definitely check out the link here. We are going to be hosting them on-site in Portugal on our farm as well as abroad, so lots of fun to be had, definitely go check it out. Back to the video. Next up, I set up this fermentation station. So we're going to now quickly walk through a very simple sauerkraut recipe. I wanted to show you, if you want to see me do this in bulk, then there's another video, the classic German one. This is going to be the simplest ferment that you can ever make, and you can also substitute the cabbage with carrot, or you could even do it with carrot and onion, or you could add carrot into this, so you can get super creative with this basic recipe that I'm about to show you. So first off, get all your tools ready. You need a fermentation weight, something to press down the fermented vegetables so that they stay beneath the brine. Secondly, you're going to need a fermentation pot. So this is a beautiful pot made by my aunt in Holland, Tante Siets. Thank you very much. Shout out. She has a wonderful pottery store. The great thing about this is that it has a water lock. So this rim here gets filled with water, and then when you put on the lid, it actually seals it off from air coming in, but it does actually let air come out, because once the pressure builds up from the fermenting process, it can escape, but air will not go in. Then you have your scales, you have a clean bowl. Also very important that this is sterile, so that you have cleaned this very well, including your weight. And then here we have the already shredded cabbage. So step number 1 is weighing out your cabbage. So I've weighed out 1.5 kilograms of cabbage, and now I'm going to weigh out the salt. So you go for 2 to 2.5% of salt to the weight of your cabbage. So for 1.5 kilo, that's 30 grams of salt. Okay, so what we're about to do here is called lactofermentation. Lactofermentation is the type of fermentation that helps transform sugars in vegetables and fruits into lactic acid, making your food food safe by lowering the pH to 4.6 and adding delicious, complex sour notes to many different foods out there. Alright, so this is already super wet and juicy, and that's very good because you want as much of the water to get extracted as possible because it needs to be submerged in the brine. I also had this little extra that I took from the cabbage salad, from the coleslaw. Voila. And now we're going to pack the jar. The idea is to pack it really nice and tight so there's no air in there. And the weight goes on. Press it down a little. We're going to close it off. And then we're filling this with water. So how long does it take for a ferment to be ready? That depends on the temperature in your household, but on average, if you're leaving it on your kitchen counter, you can safely say that in about 7 days, this is going to be acidic and tasty and ready to eat. If you want to store it for a longer time, you need to bring it down to a cool cellar, somewhere around 10 degrees Celsius preferably, and you want to keep it in a very stable environment, so meaning no big switches from hot to cold. And if you're doing it on a colder temperature, so in a colder time of year, if you're doing this in autumn for instance, the whole process might take a little longer as the sugars are not digested as quickly by the lactobacilli as they would be on a higher temperature. Alright, we'll check in on this in a few days. New day, new technique. Right now we're moving into a braising recipe, but before we're going to braise this cabbage, we're actually going to sear it. And that is the most important part because that technique, the searing, brings out the Maillard effect. The first tip for this recipe is make sure that your cabbage is nice and dry and your pan is really well preheated. We are going to be using a medium-sized head cabbage, firmly packed if you can get it. Then we'll be needing some salt, some pepper. We're going to sear it in some delicious butter. And I have a little bit of garlic oil here as well for flavor. Then later on we'll be smothering it with some beef stock. I added a little bit of soy sauce to it as well and some double cream. Then for the end we're going to grate on a bit of Parmesan cheese. Ooh, and I'm forgetting the thyme. Because our cabbages are almost going into flour, I decided to tightly roll them up using some toothpicks. Otherwise, wedges will also work. Then, in a well-heated cast iron pan, I throw in some butter and add my cabbage rolls before the butter gets too dark. The key here is to not flip them for at least 4 to 5 minutes until they become deeply golden. This brings out the sweet and nutty flavor, which makes this irresistible. Once all your rolls are beautifully golden on as many sides as possible, add in some pepper and some salt and deglaze with beef stock with a splash of soy sauce. Fill the pan until the rolls are halfway submerged. And then once you've added the beef stock, you can add in the double cream. Let this simmer softly and then add a teaspoon of thyme to let the whole simmer on. Turn your cabbage rolls over after about 10 minutes and then let it simmer some more until the sauce thickens and starts to stick to the bottom of the pan. Then grate on some Parmesan cheese and voila, ready to serve. Great as a side dish for some roast beef and a green salad. Oh, that's very tasty. It's very nutty and salty, and it's just very good. Let's have another bite with baby. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to prepare cabbages and also how to store them. If you want to learn more about vegetable preparation, check out this playlist right here. There are many more recipes up. You can find the full recipes on our website as always. And if you want to join us in Portugal for a culinary retreat, check out this link right here. See you on the next one, The Farming Chefs. Peace out.